deeply humbled by the sentiments and emotions of our own people. I'm truly honored by your presence, and I want to thank the management committee members of the President and the management committee members of the Madras Chamber, my honored guests, Mr. Rashid Mansoori, distinguished speaker, and one and all who have assembled here in this interesting evening. It's difficult to digest talking about only one person so long. I'm sure I'll do justice to your presence in the next half an hour. Today, we had a very interesting press conference. Madam Secretary General of the Madras Chamber was here. Some of the questions which were put across, if I put the questions as well as the answers I gave, I think we have done this session. The first question was, as a global economist, they saw me, is the financial crisis is over or not? That was the first question. The second question was, is India in the right direction? Is it a hype or is it real? What's happening in terms of China versus India? What is the money supply and interest rate? Why there is so much debate about interest rate seen in India? What's happening in terms of stock market? Is currencies manipulated? Why the commodities are falling? Where you come from? The Gulf states, where 45% of the world oil, 25% of the world gas comes from. And again, world over, property market bubbles are visible. Is Indian property is going to crumble or not? What's happening in the Gulf states with oil price deflecting in real order? How will you survive as a commodity-driven economy? What is the purpose of your session today? How do you think you can add value to Tamil Nadu business community? These are some of the interesting, thought-provoking questions which I need to answer. Then you carry some message and in real values in terms of true substance and form. To order in sequence the same questions. The world is changing. We recognize the fact financial economies are converting as real. Even after 6 years, what has changed is the liquidity. When Lehman Brothers collapsed, Bear Stearns was bought over by JP Morgan, we realized the crisis is on account of a liquidity strain. A liquidity crisis has moved into a funding crisis. Funding crisis is moved into a solvency issue. Today, it's a sovereign crisis. Classic example is Greece. If you look at the bigger picture, even after 6 years, we have deflected the financial market from a technical recession to asset price inflation. That's all has happened. Phase one was recognition of the liquidity. And the financial institutions were grossly undercapitalized. Financial engineering went beyond definition. Investment bank did corporate crimes. No question about it. That was the definition of the issue. Bankers lost their trust. Whether you run a private institution or a local institution, it is global, it is public. More than the shareholders' money, the public deposit is at stake. A good institution, as accepted by international norms, as such a shareholder's equity is 8 to 10 times. So if you want to siphon out your shareholders' money, it's very easy. That's why transparency is required. The crisis is an opportunity in substance. I don't look at the financial crisis as a crisis. I had the privilege of addressing the United Nations on March 18, 2012. I did mention this crisis is an opportunity. If you look at the a bigger picture, advanced economies engineered in substance the capital norms. They were grossly undercapitalized if you look at any part of the world. That's why financial inclusion of emerging markets, G7 has become G8, G8 has become G20 today. Inclusive growth. Incrementally, we need to bring in the decision-making process, including global governance, in prospects to see we have to bring in world at large so that we can eradicate extreme poverty. Mr. Ramkumar, please come. We have to eradicate extreme poverty. We have to bring in gender equality. We have to bring in universal health care. We have to bring in universal education. We have to make sure environment sustainability comes in. To accomplish this, to create a better world, we need to build a global partnership. And precisely, is it happening? The decisions were taken in G20 in multiple forms. Substance in terms of policy reorganization is taking place, but execution has not taken place. In the process, phase 1 was liquidity well defined. Phase 2 is to print money. What you call quantitative easing. By improving the money supply, the hard money transcending borders. It moved the stocks. It moved the properties. It moves the asset prices world over, from the advanced economies to emerging markets. It swings. The financial markets were highly volatile. If phase 2 is printing money, after 5 years of Federal Reserve open market operations, trillions of dollars pumped globally, they have decided the economy is recovering. What are the 3 cumulative conditions which they need to fulfill? Number 1, the inflation has to be not less than 2%. Purchasing power parity has to improve. The jobless claims has to come down. And ensuring sustainable growth is there. These are the conditions to be fulfilled. Has it been accomplished? Yes, the housing market has recovered, no question. Yes, the purchasing power parity is improving, no question. Inflation is not there. 2%, they are not able to inflate. They cannot achieve sustainable growth. Last quarter was 3.7%. American economy. I have the Consul General is here, the Chamber, the commercial attaché is here. It's still uneven. That is why Federal Reserve is contemplating an option whether to increase the interest rate or not. Increasing the interest rate will have consequential impact world over. If America can print money, Bank of England can print money. That's what they did. European Central Bank can print money. That's what they did. Japan was technically under recession. They have to inflate. Export-driven economies, when the currency is strong, they are getting degenerated. They have to weaken the currency so that the export becomes, whether automobile or electronics, they can pump more world over. They have to pump trillions of yen in the open market operations. And essentially, they managed to pull Japanese economy out of technical recession. Now, the question is to be or not to be. Whether to increase the interest rate, Federal Reserve should increase or not. The minute they signal last year, you are seeing the reflection in the emerging markets. The currencies was decelerating. The commodities were completely speculated. And again, the so-called the emerging markets were technically pushed to back seat. Mind you, over 60% of the global productivity incremental growth comes out of emerging markets. India, China, Russia, Brussels, or South Africa. Looking at the global predicament today, we are in phase 3 of the financial crisis. The crisis is not over. That was my answer. The reason is very simple. When America stopped the quantitative easing, European Central Bank started pumping more, 60 billion worth of money supply was incrementally added last year to pull Europe out of the technical recession. Japan clearly said it's not going to stop the open market operations. Now, what's happening is currency is no more the barometer. When you weaken the currency, what happens? Artificially, you're administering. The realistic intrinsic value is not a free market dictum. That's what we need to articulate. Now, competitive devaluation. I was in China last week. People used to say, when America sneezes, the rest of the world gets cold. I got cold, and last week I was in Beijing as well as Shanghai, met the regulators. Everyone said the Chinese growth story is over. I tell you, it's not over. China is formidable in substance. I'll give a true reflection of the answers when it comes to specifics. So the bigger picture is, even after 6 years, we haven't resolved the issue. The Millennium Development Goals, which I mentioned, eradication of extreme poverty, or gender equality, universal health care, universal education, environment sustainability, these are getting redefined as we speak in the United Nations. Most of the political leaders are getting into the act of redefining 2030. How to bring in food security, how to reduce the carbon emission, how to create a carbon neutral society, how to make sure our children and grandchildren are going to be well off. That's what they're engaged in. Politics and economics have to converge in every part of the world. So the result is global growth, which was aimed in 5 years, not less than 5 to 7%. Today, it is not more than 3.2%. IMF meets twice a year. Once in October. Next week I'm in Peru, Lima. And spring meeting takes place in Washington every year in April. Both the predictions were defied. Again, they have forecasted last month after seeing competitive evaluation of Chinese economy. Currency got depreciated. Every currency was put to rest in realignment. That's the world we are in. What's happening in one part of the world resonates in the rest of the world. You cannot blame the central bank governor saying why he's not increasing, why he's increasing the interest rate. You have to integrate the information network, and you have to look at the globalized world, one single world, shrinking world, when it comes to monetary policy. The global growth has not picked up still. Advanced economies still producing 2.2%. Let's look at a splitter. US between 3 to 3.1% according to IMF. UK between 2.2 to 2.4% according to IMF. And again, when it comes to Europe, 1% to 0.8% next year. Japan, again, 0.6 to 0.8%. This is advanced economies. Summing it up in aggregate terms, between 2.2 to 2.4%. So-called emerging markets, which I mentioned, incrementally adding value, they are also slowing down. China, which was formidable enough to produce over 30 years, consolidated, aggregate not less than 9% today, is slowing down to 6.5 to 6.8%. That's why they need to devalue their currency. They have to export more. The game is not over. The front runner in the whole world today is India. Still, a functional democracy. And again, an extraordinary demographic dividend with the younger populations. The Keynesian economics holds good. In substance, is profile to generate not less than 7 to 8% if there is a convergence of politics and economics. If policy alignment comes in monetary as well as fiscal terms, they can generate 9 to 10%. No question about it. This century belongs to India. Make no mistakes. Europe today is a design error. Perhaps it's a deformity. How can you have monetary policy which is centralized? Fiscal policy is decentralized. 16 countries enlarged Europe, as defined by the Maastricht criteria, has been a telling story for us to realize how the finance minister of 16 countries who are deciding the policies for fiscal prudence is going to converge with Central Bank of Europe, European Central Bank. brother. They have to align. The finance minister here has to speak to the Reserve Bank. What the finance minister does it? He does the receipts and payments. He does the budgets. He allocates revenue streams to expenditure, capital or revenues. What the central bank governor does? He does money supply, printing or interest rates or inflation. He measures it, managing it and controlling it. If they don't go together, you have divergence. Europe, how do you read it? Now, emerging markets, summing it up, they are producing between 4.2 to 4.4%. It's an extraordinary state of affairs. China is slowing down is real. Now, answering question of whether China will come back in track, the answer is yes, firm yes. The fact which I mentioned, convergence of politics and economics is true. The decision-making process is quite simple. Chinese policy and Politburo is substantive enough to take decisions which are responsive. They don't oscillate. They make decisions. That's a design. That's a structural advantage, irrespective of the changing dynamics in the world today. But still, 6.5% is formidable. But we have equal opportunity as Indian, mind you. This is economic predictions, pure core econometrics, nothing to do with me as a patriot or as an Indian. In substance, if you extrapolate for next 30 years, the Prime Minister saying is absolutely true. This country has to produce 20 trillion. It's possible. Core economics. You don't need to inflate or deflate. That's the world today. That was my answer in real response to the questions which was put. Now, what about the Gulf countries, where 45% of the world oil, 25% of the world gas comes from? You have bigger challenges. The 6 states put together, perhaps most of you know when you say Gulf states, it starts with Oman. It is United Arab Emirates, where Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Sharjah or Ras Al Khaimah is there. And again, Qatar. Then comes Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. That's where the world oil reserves are splendid, enormity in substance, along with natural gas and petrochemicals my friend was mentioning. In substance, if you look at the dynamics of last year, when oil was projected over $100, it was 1.8 trillion economy. Today, taking oil at 50 to 55, different countries have taken different barometers. It's around 1.438 trillion. Still, they can produce current account surplus. They can produce current account surplus because the cost of production is cheaper for them, whether oil or gas. As the gentleman has already mentioned, the second largest world exporter today is LNG or gas to liquid is Qatar. In splitting the numbers, 1.438 trillion, Saudi Arabia is topping in the list with 650 billion. Then comes UAE, United Arab Emirates, which comprises of 7 states again, which produces around 365 billion. 135 billion goes to as a GDP from Kuwait. 200 billion, 211 was the number mentioned by Mr. Prabhakar. It is 197, looking at the current cost of oil, 97 billion. If you look at Oman is producing around 62 billion and Bahrain is producing around 31. Summing it up, it is 1.438 trillion. They are generating current account surplus. That is why today somebody asked me today, when the Prime Minister came to the Gulf, he visited United Arab Emirates last month, 16th of last month, the Prime Minister was in Emirates. He got secured commitments of 75 billion investments. How much? 75 billion. This is where the money is. Global sovereign fund is 6.6 trillion and 2.3 trillion sits in one pocket. That is the Gulf. 6 states. That is the logical fit for you. You have to understand the dynamics so that we can collaborate to make much better prosperity for your business. The money is real. This is commodities. This is not paper. In substance, they may be running fiscal deficit, not the current account deficit. The airport, seaport, road, rail, they have to modernize. They have to host 2022. Dubai has to host 2020. There is a huge government expenditure. That's where the opportunity for businessmen. So you have to come. That's where we need to look at it objectively and say how to collaborate. That's what Madam was mentioning. It's not competition. Competition is a misnomer. You have to collaborate. Let me have the pleasure of welcoming Justice Lakshman as well. Please come, sir. So the bigger picture is to recognize the opportunity in substance and make sure the Gulf countries are formidable. Today, one of the person asked me a very critical questions which I had to answer. இது ஒரு சொர்க்க பூமி. நான் தமிழே சொல்றேன் உங்களுக்கு இந்த கேள்விக்கு தமிழ் நான் பதிலின் தமிழ்லாம் சொன்னேன். இந்த பூமியில அந்நிய நாட்டு முதலீடு வர வேண்டிய அவசியமே இல்லையே உங்களுக்கு. எதுக்காக வாங்க உட்காருங்க. எதுக்காக அந்நிய நாட்டு முதலீடு வேணும் நமக்கு அப்படின்னு அவர் கேட்டார். இதனால நம்மளுடைய தொழில் பாதிக்கப்படாதான்னா பாதிக்கிறதுக்கு வாய்ப்பே கிடையாதுங்க. Today, if you look at the global investments, 1.26 trillion. 1.26 trillion is a global investments last year, floated across the globe. Who is the number one recipient? It's China. 128 billion. Who is the number two recipient? Again China. It is Hong Kong. 111 billion. 229 billion has gone into Chinese economy. Who is the third? Singapore, 81 billion. Who is the fourth? It is Brazil, 62 billion. What is UK? 54 billion. Germany, 54 billion again. Luxembourg, 42 billion. What was India's share? 35 billion. You need foreign direct investment to have fiscal consolidation. You need infrastructure creation. You need trillions of dollars to be invested in airport, seaport, road, rail, and reduce the carbon emission. Rising sea levels. Extraordinary issues needs to be tackled in terms of hygiene. We have to make sure our children and grandchildren are safe and sound. You have to invest in the infrastructure. You need, as required by 12th Finance Commission, trillions of dollars. Where it will come from? It has to come from outside. Then, in terms of macroeconomic stability, your job is done. If you bring in investments, foreign direct investments, this country can fix the whole. How? Today, look at the underlying fundamentals. Why India? Everyone is talking about India. Number one, your foreign exchange reserve is $340 billion. Number two, the growth nowhere in the world, you're going to have 7 to 700%. If you converge in policy framework, I'm talking about 9 to 10%. Number three, inflation, thanks to the oil price, is moderate, is measurable, is manageable, is controllable. You have to cut the interest rate, pass it on to the business community so that they can reduce their cost of production. If your financing cost is more, what happens? Your cost of production goes up. If your cost of production goes up, your manufacturing cost goes up, your selling cost has to be high, then you are not competitive globally. That is the reality. Whether small enterprises, medium-sized entrepreneurs, your business model doesn't work. Typical small and medium-sized entrepreneurs pay 14 to 15%. Now, why should you come to Qatar? There's also a correlation in what I want to say. I stand to lose nothing by offering as a banker. It's a potential risk is completely hedged for me because Qatar government is represented by Qatar Exchange. He lists Qatar Exchange, small and medium-sized business. We hosted an evening. 87% partial guarantee of my lending is given by Qatar Development Bank. Then why should I hesitate? 87% is guaranteed. So lending risk becomes minimal for me. Doing business is equally easy for you. Cost of capital is cheaper. If you pay 15% as a small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, what will be your profit? If you pay 6% or 7%, and what will be your profit? How far it is? It's proximity. 2 hours. Madam asked me what time you came. I came at 6 o'clock today. 2 hours. I just had my meal. I landed here. That's it. It's not far. Human capital we invested over 7.5 million people. What is the difficulty in setting up business in the Gulf? Whether small or medium sized or large enterprises. Why not you set it up? Try it. That's my message to you. In substance. This is not a sales pitch. I genuinely wanted to make sure this is a logical fit. India and the Gulf states are logical partners. If you don't recognize it, he knows. He was sitting in the Qatar investment authorities. He knows in multiple markets, multiple sectors, Qatar has invested. But if you have projects, bring it to us. Show me the projects with the payback. Show me the details of your specifics, whether manufacturing or otherwise. We will represent you to Qatar investment authorities or investment partnership you need. We can bring it to you. We can bring in debt through Doha Bank. There are Doha Bank plus other banks are also there for you. The choice is yours. We can facilitate. That's what exactly we want to convey in substance. So the bigger picture is to recognize the Gulf states have got enormity in terms of substance, and it's a logical fit for you. They will produce current account surplus, as I mentioned. They will have fiscal deficit for short term. Today, somebody asked me, I had a television interview in Pudhiya Thalamurai. Oil price is gone. It's tumbled, or from $100 it has come to $45. I said, that's right. What happened? I said, I'll tell you the reasoning. I asked him the question back to him. I said, do you mean to say the supply has increased by 100%? Or the demand has regressed significantly? The answer is no. So what has changed? Why the oil price should come down from $100 to 45 today, US crude, and 48 is Brent? Why? The reason is, A, the supply has increased marginally from 89 million barrels of supply chain, OPEC and non-OPEC put together. We are now producing around 92 million. There is a fear that there will be more glut. Already you have reflection of shale gas, hydraulic fracturing. Americans are now net importer a year before. Today they are net exporter. They are exporting oil and gas. The story is not over. The oil price is not only on account of the marginal increase in the supply. Oil price has regressed purely because you have over 40%, the dollar has strengthened. If you look at the basket of currency, dollar as a basket, it has moved from 75 basis points. Today, it's 96 basis points. It's significant if you look at it. What do you do as a finance man when the currency is weak? When dollar is weak, what do you do? If you're a trader, if you have commitment in terms of import or exports, you hedge the risk by buying commodity futures. When oil was over $100, it is commodity futures which were driving the price, not the spot deals, not the real demand and supply transaction which was driving. Today, if dollar is strengthening, you will not catch the falling knife. Why should you? Why should you hedge it? So what's happening is no commodity futures. It's only the demand supply factor operates. What does it mean in terms of medium and long term? Obviously, the next question is, if this is the precarious conditions the Gulf states have to go through, first of all, the production cost is far cheaper. The sheer scale and substance. LNG, for example, we are the second largest exporter, 77 million metric ton, right from India. India bilateral trade is 16 billion. India itself is a telling story for the Gulf states. We make net balance of payments over 100 billion to the Gulf states. How? Our bilateral trade is 133 billion. Splitting it up again, UAE, 60 billion, 40 billion Saudi Arabia, 16 billion is Qatar, 14 billion is Kuwait, 4 billion is Oman. Balance, the very single digit, 1 billion is Bahrain. That's the essence of it. Now, when the Prime Minister was here, me and my wife, we met him in February last month in Dubai. I presented him a paper. I said, listen, every year we are making 100 billion net payments as a balance of payment for your oil imports or natural gas or petrochemicals, or $100 billion. Why don't you ask for moratorium? This is what we are doing now. I said, you are doing it, but you have to take a long-term commitment, float a GCC Indo Infrastructure Bank and ask them to give 5-year moratorium, put them as equity, and then give an exit strategy. After 5 years or 8 years, you will pay back. Your problem is solved for infrastructure. Anyway, you have to pay every year. You don't pay for next 5 years. And getting into capital addition. And then via exit strategy, you give him proposal. So it is workable. At a G to G level I'm talking about. The relationship is so extraordinary, cultural transcendations. I requested Mr. Nalli to come and set it up. He will have a huge business there. It's an extraordinary franchise. What is not there in the Gulf now? Indian foods are available. Indian festivals are celebrated. Indian gods are worshipped as well in some pockets. And it was generous enough. Abu Dhabi has given a temple as well. So the generosity and the benevolence of the Gulf rulers today is to converge. Here is an economy which is converging over the years. Indians have, wherever they have gone, they have engaged in commitment, hard work, sincerity. Our heritage, our culture, our civilization has worked. Let's not underestimate our potential. Today, global Indians are formidable in substance. Not only they are in Silicon Valley, world over. As you know, our brand equity is over 15 countries. And I am seeing the Indian community time and again. I spend time with them. I know the quality of commitment they make. And it is a great feel for you to believe how Indians have, our culture and value system has transcended and how it works so well around the world. How committed they are in responding to cultural adaptation, accepting the new norm and working with them. I'm thankful to Qataris for accepting me 15 years before as an Indian, as a Tamilian, to run an enterprise. I have not let them down. Mind you, I will not let them down as well. That's my commitment. It's a logical fit. And that's what we need to understand in terms of recognition. What is in store for you? Why should you come to Gulf? I gave the bigger picture. What are the prospects? I gave you the numbers. If I split the numbers in terms of projects, it's huge. This year alone, in spite of the fact they all have taken oil at 50 to 55, the budget which is projected was 171 billion. Saudi was topping in the list, 50 billion. Then comes Qatar, 30 billion. Then comes 29 billion is UAE. 27 billion is Oman. And the balance is Bahrain. And Kuwait is also again 14 billion. If you summing it up, you see where else you will find $171 billion worth of committed expenditure. They have to urbanize, they have to modernize, they have to build the infrastructure. That's where I want SMEs to come. Set up a business here. Tamil Nadu is known for its extraordinary commitment. It's a state of Detroit in substance for automobile. You have huge farmers, you have huge foundries, and EPC companies can come in. It's not only individuals can come, blue collars or white collars, bankers or technicians, but business community should come, explore the opportunity. Business is not there today. I'm not down risking anything other than saying the fact. Opportunity exists within your feet. The money is there, you can pick it up if you have responsible business model. And that's what we need to converge, creating an onshore model or offshore model, as you choose. If you have free zones, Madam was mentioning today, Secretary General, that offshore, the Madras Chamber of Commerce explored in Dubai or Sharjah. There are single window clearance for you. Doing business in Qatar is equally easy. Not only you can list your company in the Qatar exchange, you can also have cost-effective funding, and your tax slab is just 10%, flat tax 10%. That's it. SME, I gave the reason why you should. We know how many prospects are in place when it comes to small and medium size. India survives on SMEs. Still, our gross domestic product is not formidable enough. It should have been. It will be, provided the cost of financing comes cost effective. And that's precisely the opportunity you have to understand the dynamics. It's not that I have taken the branch here and I'm trying to communicate to you. No, my exposure today, over the years, without a branch was over $200 billion. Our proximity now, direct access to the relationship is going to multiply in different fold in terms of lending or investments, whether it is small or medium-sized entrepreneurs or big tickets corporates. We can. Credit risk is measurable, manageable, and controllable. We are here to facilitate in substance. And bilateral trade is available. It is going to grow further. India needs energy security. The Indian Prime Minister hosted Emir of Qatar on March 25th. In fact, you were there, you said. 25th of March in Delhi. There are enough bilateral agreements signed. Investments have been committed. Now they are looking at opportunities. Gulf states knows we have to present formidable, good projects where payback is clear, cash flows are clear, projects is viable, and there is definite captive business model. If that is what your business is all about, then you have to come to Gulf. And that's what we can put together, whether it is equity or debt, can be aligned to generate value systems which are going to be enduring. So, summing it up, the essence of my discussion today is nothing but the questions which I have answered today in the morning. What I am trying to draw, in substance, Gulf economies are strong and sound, irrespective of the fluctuations financial markets you are looking at today. Financial markets, mind you, it's a gambling ground. It's a gambling ground. Competitive currency administration will continue to happen. And the world at large will have to go through global governance with a different spree. The only solution is, unless we set universal standard in terms of accounting, valuation, securitization, and sets global norms, which are global again, because it's a global problem, we cannot stop the volatility in markets. It will continue. It's an opportunity than a crisis. Provided you create a knowledge society within your enterprise or within a country. And that's what India is all about today. We withstood 1997 financial crisis. We withstood when nuclear physics was invented in 2000. Thanks to Dr. Abdul Kalam. Americans sanctioned it. Nothing was disturbed. 2001, post-September, security norms were degenerated. We withstood our pressure. We have gone through tougher stand when it comes to financial stability, liquidity or profitability in 2008 when visibly global financial crisis was shaking. The whole world, public-private partnership model was created. We nationalized the banks in 1969. What are we worried about? 1969, we said it's a public-private partnership model. Banks ought to be nationalized, as I mentioned, for the reasons which you have to recognize. It's an opportunity than a crisis. And recognition of the fact today, it is a front runner in terms of global governance, whether it is IMF, whether it is the World Bank, whether it is IBRD, or BRICS. We are becoming a source to reckon. And again, United Nations Security Council seats is being solicited, rightfully so. 1/6 of the humanity you command. What are we worried about? The global powers recognize here is a functional democracy which is transparent. System needs to be aligned. Structural advantage has to come in. But the government has taken right extraordinary measures. Liberalization of markets in terms of real estate. Liberalization in terms of healthcare. Liberalization in terms of defense, insurance, banking. Payment banks have been given. Microfinancing institutions have been given license. We didn't sort out the land issue. We didn't structurally reorganize GST. That's the structural reorganization required to create center-state partnership. It is required. Those are question of time. Today, in a competitive world, when the world is changing on account of globalization, the world is changing on account of re-regulation from deregulation, Technology and consumerism is redefining the norms, and India is going to be formidable. India is going to be a powerhouse in terms of economics and humanity. Our heritage and culture and civilization has been an astounding fact for everyone to recognize. Our value system is second to none. It's cultural alliance world over we are creating in substance. And Gulf is a place where you can do enormous amount of business, provided you understand the dynamics. If you need to understand, we are here to support. As an institution, we are operating in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait. We are operating in Japan, Australia, Sydney. Japan, I'm there for the last 10 years. Korea, I'm there for the last 9 years. Singapore, there for 9 years. Shanghai, there for 2007. And again, Hong Kong for the last 3 years. Istanbul, wherever you want to do business. Or Canada, Toronto, we are there. Or London, or Frankfurt. London, we are there since 2008. Frankfurt, we are there from 2011. We gone where there is an economic linkage. It's not that every buzzing metropolitan we want to have an office. These are commercially producing enterprise. And we are here to support your business. We are here to make sure you create a business model. You create values to all your stakeholders. That is the very purpose of the mission. I want to thank one and all in Madras Chamber of Commerce and the committed organizers in ensuring we have a large turnout. I could see clearly. This is not the full depiction of what I want to say, but we have information. We can pass it on through emails or personal interface. And we are here in Mumbai, we are here in Cochin. We want to be in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is my home. Definitely, when there is a first opportunity, I want to bring in Doha Bank here as well. And definitely, we want to make sure we grow together. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.